All right, good evening and welcome to the March 1st, 2023 council meeting. We're in Sunbury, Ohio tonight and it's 7:30 p.m. Would you please join me for a moment of silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A full house here this evening. Let's start with the roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
Mrs. Cooper. Here. Mr. Capel.
Here.
Mr. Ghost.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Grumney.
Here.
Mr. Neff.
Here.
All present.
There was a meeting on February 15th of 2023, and I'd like to make a motion to approve. Second by Damon Capel. Edits or discussion on the minutes? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes. Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
7 A's.
We're on to the visitor section this evening. Is there anyone who would like to speak with the council?
Barry's thinking about it.
In the back row? No. Right. All right. We're on to committee reports. Let's start with Mr. Neff. Your report, hey, Mr. Martin. Nope. Mrs. Cooper.
Yes, we had an events meeting. If you recall, we moved the events meeting and because of Murray. So a lot of work was shouldered on Mr. Martin and I. We had the big one at lacrosse is going to be, it had requested use of J.R. Smith for their season on Sunday. So you'll see lacrosse out there at J.R. Smith. We finalized our parade best practices. It is in your OneDrive. Please look it over. And if you have any feedback, get that back to me. I'll be looking for council approval at our next meeting. Staff received 2 quotes for an electricity upgrade and the committee is recommending the lowest and best bid. It is within the mayor's spending limit and he has expressed his support. And finally, we discussed a 2023 event schedule with a few edits needed and it'll be ready to push out. One of those edits is they have on the draft a temporary trick or treat date. And so Halloween falls on a Tuesday this year. So I don't see any drama with that. So we can get the event schedule out. I would like to make a motion that we have our trick or treat on Tuesday, October 31st of 2023 this year. From what do we usually do? 6 to 8?
Yes.
6 to 8.
And could we specify that the electric upgrade is on the square, not just,
It's the
Citywide.
3
Yeah.
boxes on the square.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a second on my motion for trick or treat.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Got a second by Council President Tim Ghost. Discussion? I like tradition. It's easy to remember. October 31st, trick or treat.
What about the rain out date?
We can I'll amend my motion to add a rain out date for Wednesday, November 1st.
Wednesday, November.
Well, I guess
1st,
that'll be
as
council, but-
amended. I think the second.
Second.
Agreed.
Mhm.
All right. Discussion? Sorry. Roll.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
yes,
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney.
yes.
7 A's.
We also had a zoning meeting on Monday, February 27th. It was kind of a quick, easy meeting. We discussed, I want to say 345 or 343 McGill Street, which is Fun in the Jungle. You may remember from my last report that we met last month about a rezoning of Fun in the Jungle. Staff is now recommending we just do a conditional use change So that went through and passed unanimously. That's not something that will have to come to council. That's all for tonight.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Capel.
We had our services committee meeting earlier this evening. And one of the main topics was talking about a speed study on Sunbury Meadows Drive East. This came about because of complaints of excessive speeding on Sunbury Meadows Drive. A sign was put out for a couple weeks activated and a couple weeks inactivated. And long story short, the study came back that 85% of drivers were between 27 and 31 miles an hour. So it was within industry standard acceptable range. So the take back from that is that there's no immediate need for remediation of speed on the road, but we are still going to look at some, I'd say, creative ways to potentially fix up the area, as well as provide some speed remediation for some slowing effect for traffic through the area, especially as we get the apartments in the commercial area in that area. The service department has a couple of full-time openings, including supervisor and a foreman type of position. We're looking for 4 temp workers for the summer. These are usually positions that go to high school graduates, college students, looking for folks 18 years of age or older that are able to work for most of the summer. If you know anybody, please refer them. I'm sure Steve would be very happy to hear from them. Then from there, it was mostly just informational updates. We talked about some trials with the traffic lights at Cherry and Miller Drive, Cherry and Route 3, and then the stormwater utility program as well. Spent a little bit of time discussing the community outreach part of that, especially in the need to have a solid plan going into potentially rolling out a stormwater utility plan with the public. That's all I've got.
Great update. Great meeting. Mr. Rumney?
I would prefer Mr. Ghost for parks.
Sure.
Mr. Ghost?
Yeah, we had a parks meeting earlier this evening, and primary focus once again was on revitalization of the core area of Sunbury. We talked about that last meeting and what we were going to do. We sort of expanded our scope of study to include the square and the connectivity between the square and J.R. Smith Park, and the trail and how that comes into play, Out Erie Trail, as well as the new ODOT building, the new ODOT piece of property, and the other corners that we have around the square, and how to move forward and revitalizing that. But that's still on our plate, but we have turned our attention more toward J.R. Smith and wanting to move the ball forward and getting something more defined in terms of getting a town hall set up, seeking feedback from our local community, as well as our council members here. We did want to set a date, but before we did that, we want feedback from you all. And if you look at the plan here, that Amber's brought up, you see the master plan. I think you've all seen this. Nothing really has changed in the last month or so with it. We have the main centerpiece there is the splash pad. And then you've got to the north is a playground. And then to the left there to the west is a pavilion of some kind. And then we have an expanded parking lot. And to the right of that on the end is the basketball area. We want to renovate that, improve that. And we've got the perimeter trail all the way around with some exercise stations and a bike maintenance area. So that's our main focus, but we don't want to, we're not going to settle on anything until we have the public feedback and get your feedback here. So
did you remove the pickleball courts that you had at one time?
yes, we have for the time being. We think a better spot for that might be Freedom Park. Demographically speaking, the amenities that you see here are targeted more toward the family crowd. And we felt that after further consideration, putting the pickleball court there, that's a more senior crowd, and having those two mixed together not really necessarily how you want to set up a park. So for now, that's where we're at, but that could change depending on public feedback and how you guys feel about it. But we, you know, that pickleball court could come into play later in a different phase. There's still enough room down there in that green space that for another amenity or two, but we, you know, we want to keep some open area there for people to linger. Mr. Hennessy or Steve, did you want to add anything further to that, or Dan? So I think at this point, what we want to do is seek your feedback here tonight. If you have any further questions, if you like this idea, what we would do is instruct Mr. Hennessy to come up with some dates, probably 30 days, 45 days in the future, to have a town hall. It's more of a workshop where we got the Post-it notes out and we're seeking feedback. And CT would begin drilling this down a little bit further and creating the poster boards for displays.
Is that circle, that darker circle in the middle, is that the splash pad?
Yes.
I have a hard time believing that the public would not respond favorably to this, especially geared towards young children. I think there's been a lot of request for that.
And two, just if I can add, one of the important things we talked about was connectivity between this park, J.R. Smith Park, and the square. And then we also had a guest provide some commentary. Ms. Cooper actually talked about, which is very important, some of the more mature communities like the gardens having access or safe access to the park and the square, where the newer developments, it's a requirement. The more mature communities don't necessarily have that built in. So as we're looking to create paths and safe ways to get to the square, to the parks, that we think about the inclusion of those communities so they can equally access it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's part of the broader scope of connectivity with that Crowell Drive area, and maybe going a long way towards solving some of them. I know we've had some snow removal issues and maybe some runoff control sewer issues over there. Maybe we can, you know, sort of work on that as we're working on this, and kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And the corner, the Martindale corner, we want to enhance that a little bit, but maybe more importantly is the new corner that'll be coming on board here when we do the debris removal. We've included that as part of the overall broader scope of the square revitalization piece. So, but again, that's secondary to what we want to do with J.R. Smith. That's the primary focus, moving that ball forward.
How large is the splash pad compared to maybe like Delaware's or? I don't want to get this wrong on the.
He wants ours to be bigger.
Yeah, definitely.
We had a lot of discussion about square footage on that the last few months, but I'd like to see a little bit bigger than Delaware's, honestly.
The only feedback I've seen on Facebook, somebody said, "Hey, are they still talking about a splash pad?" And somebody was like, "They better not underbuild." Like, you know.
Again, this is something that it'll come
There's
out.
going to be a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it'll, you know, we all know Intel's coming to the southeast, so this could attract, I'm sure, some part of those future residents as well. There's really not a nice splash pad between here and there. So, you know, we have that in mind.
And what about connection to the Ohio Erie Trail? We're proposing a shared way on Cherry there.
Yeah, we haven't gotten quite that far yet in terms of how the lay of the land would come into play with where that trail is going to be and what the best connection point would be. I frankly would like to see it, you know, behind Sure Signs. Maybe have
that's what
talk to him and see if we can come in behind there. But again, you got a big steep drop off where the trees start.
right.
So I'm not sure that's the right spot. CT has to do further.
We got Dan Whited over there. He can
Dan's on.
draw something up. Rise over run diagram,
It is a little tough with that,
Yeah.
live out there, but we have.
but not undoable.
With money, anything is possible.
Yeah, that's a primary concern, and reason we're doing this is for connectivity to the Ohio Erie Trail. We'll find a way, just not sure what the most economical and fair and reasonable path section will be to that, but. Mr. Bream's chomping at the bit. Go ahead, Dick.
Just a reminder, I was told that there are subsurface conditions within this park area. I don't know how you check for that. It's a historical thing, but apparently the person was certain that it exists, so.
Like grave site subsurface?
Well, I believe it was water.
Okay.
Underground stream or something of that nature.
Okay.
So if we're running piping or anything to a splash pad, you know, that type of element.
No
Make
UST,
sure we do our-
underground storage tank.
Not that I know of. I guess it's something that just keep in mind and let's make sure we explore it.
Got that, Dan?
That can cause major.
Yes, sir.
problems.
Okay.
But that possibly we might have to do some, a couple borings out there if there's that kind of situation. If you've got any documentation about what it might be, I'd love to see it.
I can give you the source,
Okay, all right,
explore it that way.
all right, sounds
I don't
good.
have any documentation.
Okay. Underground water doesn't bother me so much as if it's trash or USTs or something like that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
And as far as funding sources, we have, I know Mr. Hennessy and Mr. Piles and Amber are looking into, as well as CT for our next meeting in a month or two, you know, what that looks like.
Tim, I know you want us to focus on J.R. Smith. I've probably gotten a little bit excited about some of the diagrams and connectivity into the square and those improvements. I mean, I think Ohio to Erie Trail, right sizing the road on 37 underneath the future Ohio to Erie Trail. And that's so important. That has to happen.
Mhm.
It's just, I mean, we're disconnecting a whole side of the population from being able to create a walkable community. The connection to the square and J.R. Smith, I think it all parlays together really nice. I mean, in terms of the layout, it's not much change from what I've seen in the past. I think it's a thoughtful approach to this area. And I think it's the right use.
That's all we're seeking tonight is just some guidance from council. You think it's okay, then our next step would be to present a more drilled down version of this and some blow up posters at the town hall. That's what we're seeking.
So you're hoping to have a fairly significant splash pad and a fairly significant playground?
Yes, you know, again, that's all going to depend on feedback and budgeting, obviously, funding. Would love to have a, 4,000 or 5,000 square. That's a little large, but 2,500 to 3,000, I think is about average, isn't it, Dan? Yeah.
That one in, can't remember how much that one in Delaware is, but they got, I'm sure you've all seen it, the dinosaurs and all that stuff out there with them.
Yeah.
I mean, the one cool thing about that though, I mean, I've been out there on busy days and there's families that rent that shelter, like multiple shelters now.
Right.
And, they've got a concession stand out there. I assume that goes back into the park system. I mean, it's kind of a nice, well-oiled machine. I didn't feel packed is what I'm trying to say. There were a lot of people spread out. Some people were bringing packed lunches and stuff. And then other people had like formal birthday parties while other people were in the splash pad and the playground. It was a really nice setup. And I mean, I'm not too
And
ashamed
right
to steal
next
their
to
ideas.
it, they have that all those soccer fields out there and stuff. They have a full 1 mile oval track that goes all the way around those soccer fields. It's paved track.
Mhm.
Something that's really nice about the Delaware setup too is they have those built-in chairs that don't move. They're like loungers.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to bring your own chair.
Right.
And they have like tables set up so you can put your water bottle and your snacks, and it's relaxing, even though you're surrounded by lots of families.
Right.
It's nice.
Are there any public restrooms?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
in the same building as the snack bar.
Yeah.
and that's what we're
There's a men's and women's restroom.
proposing here as well. Well, what that looks like and the size and shape, that's to be determined. As well as, we talk a lot about an amphitheater down there and maybe something small with a couple steps or two, similar to what you might see at Hilliard. If you pull up the one in Hilliard, it's kind of a small amphitheater look, a couple of stairs and a small stage, sort of right next to the splash pad, you know, there's room for that in that green space area. If we get some public feedback that's really favorable or positive, we can always reshape the pavilion and sort of maybe the pavilion turns into a sort of mini amphitheater look and feel. And you have the kids, you know, out playing in the front. And so it's just if you look at the Hilliard one was really neat, a neat concept. But again, this is only conceptual, so at this point.
How far away are we from a public meeting? I feel like this is a group that's seen some version of this in the past, and I mean, I can make it sound bad, but we're kind of an echo chamber, like we agree this is a good idea. Can we, how far away are we from the public where we start either getting yelled at or like cheered?
We basically instructed Mr. Hennessy to come up with some dates around 30 days from now or so. So, I mean, that's kind of the target, assuming CT can get the posters put together and be ready for that.
I think that should be fine.
And you were looking at a Saturday morning and an evening.
That's right. Two different days or times on the same day. I forget. 2 different dates. Yeah.
One would be during the week in the evening.
Right.
And a Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
On what looks like the overflow parking lot, with the
Yes.
7 spots,
Yes.
is the only access to that driving through the park?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. We kicked that around. That's been the number of spots has shrunk in order to have a turnaround area. So that is the only access. You know, we would widen that road, that path, so you know it's going to look like a road. And so to get you over to those spots. And then we have crosswalks built in somewhere in there. We know, depending on traffic studies, you don't know exactly where that's going to be, but the idea is to get people across there in a nice crosswalk signalized, and then you get them walking to a square, maybe through that alley by the tavern. So, you know, the whole idea is this could be overflow parking, for example, for an event on the square that would be easily accessible by foot.
What's directly south of the parking lot, or I guess I don't know if that's actually south, but underneath the main parking area? Is that just landscaping and?
That actually is, I'm not sure what we called that.
I think it's you're talking about the garden?
The garden area.
Okay.
Pollinator / well, it says.
It's more for runoff control on the, but it's going to kind of have a look and feel of sort of a garden area.
Green infrastructure field, bioretention or something.
That was the word, yeah.
Bioswale or rain garden.
I kind of think I know where you're going with it, Murray, though. Is it, do we want people driving through the park when you're gonna have kids running off?
Only 7 spots.
Yeah.
But just the sheer amount of space you used with the road getting there.
Yeah, if we were gonna connect on to Cherry, that's not Cherry, that's Granville. If we were gonna connect on to Granville, I think it may be a good use, but if you're not, then I tend to agree. It's a parking lot right now, kind of, right? I mean, that's concrete.
Yes,
It is hard because it kind of, you step down, you have to go down to get to the parking lot. So it's like a hard grade, like very steep.
But Dan's over there and he can draw it up.
If you look, if you can come, you're coming from Cherry or from Granville that way, I think having like a bigger entrance, because if it's for foot traffic, would almost be more beneficial than 7 spots and make it more a grandiose.
I tend to
entrance.
agree with you on that. I think it does have that feel, and plus you're coming in from up above, right? Like, wow, this is.
Archway.
That's a good point. That's a good,
Yeah, park.
good feedback. Maybe that's
Intel.
what we need.
Intel Park.
That kind of feedback is what we're looking for. So
Yeah.
it's things like that will come out of it.
There's a reason, I can't remember now, but I thought Wes was the one that was encouraging that. But I don't remember why, but he had an engineering reason why he wanted that, and now I don't remember.
He's pretty adamant about that. We'll have to follow up with him.
Loop back to him.
I'm sure he has some good reasons, but
Or it maybe had to do with the Lions building being right there.
yeah, that's still used, and we're going to fix it up. Mhm.
So there's limited parking.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
That was. And it doesn't connect because of grade change.
Right.
To-
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for using those buildings, you would be able to have easier access.
And also regarding our master plan parks we did a few years ago, one of the top things on that was one of the top one or two things was splash pads / swimming pool. So, what we're doing here is checking that box.
Your stay-at-home parents in the summertime, are gonna spend a lot of time.
Mhm.
Guarantee.
We talked some about taking the splash pad out and putting it out to the west somewhere in the future. But when you think about it, we could always do that. You can always do a second one out there if we feel like we need one. But having one here in the center near the square brings people there where we really would like to see more people. And a lot of the growth in the future most likely is going to be to this on this side of the square to the south and east. So,
I like you're investing in older Sunbury. And I think it was Mr. Grumney that had said in one of your meetings that sometimes you're at the square at the event and you're done at the square, but you're not really ready to go home because it's really nice that you want to be in Sunbury, but the event is over or you're done with the event. And he said it would be nice to just walk across the street and then just enjoy some time there. So I think it's a great location. I like it.
And I think we'll get positive feedback from the local neighbors. We did have one neighbor come, I think it was last month, and he and his wife showed up who live right across the street there on Cherry. And they were real positive about what we were planning to do here. A lot of good feedback. And he had talked to some of his neighbors. And he's also a client of mine too, but I've talked to him again about it again, and he says everybody feels pretty solid about it. So we'll see.
Will this require labor? Additional labor?
Yeah.
Like management,
Operate
like
Smith.
we're testing.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
operate splash pad, you put a snack bar in there, so
Oh, yeah.
what are we talking about? Seasonal labor and.
Yeah, that requires daily, if I'm not mistaken,
it's
daily reporting, right, Steve?
essentially a pool, so.
Yeah.
In terms of the water quality testing, I don't think we talked about having a snack bar in there though, did we?
Somebody
That's
mentioned it,
Delaware.
but- Okay.
Okay, but yeah, somebody's gonna have to clean the restroom,
Okay.
so yes, there will be. Pretty much a significant part of a person that'll have to be dedicated to,
For periods of the year.
yeah, just for seasonal.
There's also two types primarily, you've got the self-circulating.
Right,
Right.
like a pool versus the fresh water.
Right, and fresh water pulling from the water source every time.
Never know, water prices are going up, I guarantee that.
So I think we're leaning toward the self-contained system at this point.
I actually was involved in the one in Delaware, and that was a really good point about the operation and maintenance of it, because it is costly and you need somebody that's qualified, depending on what type of treatment you use. You need to have somebody that's qualified at that, and whether it's a staff person or it may need to be a vendor or that kind of thing. But at Delaware, the hardware, all the piping galleries and those things are in that snack bar or shelter house area there, which is convenient for multiple use,
Full
but
purpose.
but it does need to be maintained in the winter to some degree as well. Make sure it's not freezing and stuff. But
The Lions building already have that in the basement, or doors come up for the concession stand. Back when it was a big one at youth.
Yeah.
They do, we have a kitchen in there, and it's.
Yeah,
Oh, it's still there.
the north building does have roll-up doors.
We have a little facelift.
And as far as another one comment about funding, and Miss Stefan did an impact fee study for us. I haven't had a chance to look into it in great detail, but we just recently changed the impact fees and increased them several months ago. And it looks like, we could see several hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would say, I wouldn't say that. I'd say at least 100,000, 200,000 or so over the next couple, 2 or 3 years that will come in. That could be dedicated to funding this. And of course, we still have grant opportunities, and we could seek a levy and go directly to the voters if it's too pricey. So we do have all those options.
Looking forward to hearing the public feedback on this. I would definitely, I mean, since you mentioned that, should mention that also in a public meeting to see like, hey, are you willing to support this financially? Or is it just you like the concept?
Right. We hope to have some funding models ready to go at that meeting too.
I think also at the retreat, we should probably do a little bit more of a deep dive, like the comprehensive view of the square, Ohio Erie Trail, connectivity, parks, and especially in the downtown area.
Yeah, good point. So that's, I think enough on that. Just a couple other items too. We've talked about, Amber talked to us about pursuing a grant with the Delaware Public Health District, the Healthy Living Grant. Talked about bike racks, community garden, wayfinding signage and benches. So, you know, there's 15,000 available. If we could get a few thousand out of that, we could do something with that. That's coming up quick. I think it's the end of this month is the deadline for that. Thank you for doing that. And then Mr. Hennessy and Amber talked about the disc golf tournament we had. I think it's the Olentangy group.
It's primarily firefighters that are coming to this one, so.
March 19th, I believe, right? Yeah, 75 participants.
That's great.
So we're gonna open up the park. We're gonna do a little bit of extra work down there, put some more baskets up, cut the grass and do what we need to do for that. So that's a good thing. And then we're gonna have further discussion in parks as to whether or not we want to make this a routine, a regular event, a disc golf tournament, maybe a monthly tournament, because we've been told that our course is one of the best in the state, at least in the Central Ohio area.
Guy I work with, he's like, I don't think he's pro, but he travels everywhere. He's like, I love the course, I love Kenslet.
Yeah.
It's because it's primarily woods. And I think that's what people like about it.
Yeah. Yes. So let's see what else. I think that's about it. I miss anything, Mr. Grundy? Oh, Lions building. We do have some estimates together. Mr. Piles about 16 or 17,000 to do some renovation work. Steve's going to talk to the Lions Club folks, see if we can get some participation out of them as well before we move forward with that. And we do have the calendar of events for you here. I think we did post that on the website earlier, so I think that's it for now.
All right. Great. Any other committee reports? I just had one, I'm on the Delaware County Intel Steering Committee. We meet tomorrow. The key speakers tomorrow are going to be the director of the Ohio EPA and Jim Leonard from Neighborhood Strategies. So looking forward. Also, I'm bringing a guest, Grant Colson, senior at Big Walnut High School, ranked #1, going to UPenn, doing a little job shadowing. And really looking forward to having him attend with me tomorrow. Police report. Would you like me to cover it? Sheriff Russ Martin retiring. I think he's worked in law enforcement for about 50 years. It's like 42. So in his 5th decade of work. He was just starting his 5th decade.
Wow.
It's the hang of it.
-2 when he started. That was amazing. Saw that. Yeah, Chief Balzer, good guy. That's great. And this afternoon, I swore in Officer Rob Wilson, a part-time officer, came from the Sheriff's Department. Looking local guy, kids are in Big Walnut schools. Great
Didn't
guy.
he used to work for the city of, for the village of Sunbury?
8 years here.
Yeah,
Yeah, served 8 years here and he went to the sheriff's office. Now he's back.
yeah.
That's right. Good. Glad to have him on. Any questions for Deputy Chief? All right. We're on the administrative report.
Thanks, Mayor. I posted the report sometime mid-morning yesterday. Note the graph on new builds it's in your packet on page 12. Off to a strong start there. The only other thing that I neglected to put on my report because I learned of it yesterday afternoon
Andreas, many of you may have met him at the Christmas party. He works with Dale. He has successfully passed his class 1 wastewater operator license, and that's been something that that was a need that we've tried to really encourage, and so he has passed that license. Congratulations to him, and answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Commissioner Piles?
I know Andreas, right? Or is it Andreas?
Andreas.
I know he was studying really hard for that. I remember I was down there a few months back.
Yeah.
This is probably 4 or 5 months ago. And just to do an impromptu tour, and he was the one fellow there, and he was studying. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm studying for the test." I said, "How often do you study?" He says, "Oh, it's a daily occurrence, all day, every day." So, and I know it's no easy feat
No, it's not.
to pass that.
Or you have to have like a biology degree. I mean, basically, I mean, that's the type of.
Biology, there's mathematics, there's engineering involved. It's really a multidiscipline type of knowledge that you have to have.
Yeah.
So
So shout out to him. That's good, great news.
Such a good guy.
Yeah.
His family calls him Andy. So anytime I say Andres, his wife corrects me. It's like, our son's Andres, this is Andy. But probably get HR called him. Do we have an HR team? I love that Andy. Hey, I love that guy. So positive. Such a good guy. Excellent. You have anything else, Mr. Piles?
No.
Let's go to engineers report.
Thank you, Mayor. I will, I believe you've got Wes's report in your packet. I will hit on some spots. Like, honestly, I guess of interest to me. Happy to answer any questions. Hopefully we share interests. The Walnut Street project, we've applied for that grant with Emergency Management Association, and it's been a lot of going back and forth. We ended up having to develop a preliminary engineering plan, but we did do that, resubmitted it, had some more questions. FEMA is the one that's asking questions. EMA is good with it. I believe I had the last questions yesterday, and I think I can get those answered, and we'll hopefully get that grant and be able to move forward with that. My hope is to also, once we get that, to coordinate with Doug Riedel at the county engineer's office and see if we can't get some assistance with some of that work with him. Little Walnut Sewer, we've been working diligently on that. We've surveyed that corridor up Golf Course Cheshire Road, and are looking at opportunities and best way to improve that road and lay the sewer down there too, so we can start getting that sewer headed up north. That project's slowly starting to come together. There's been a lot of background information had to be put together. I reviewed the stormwater utility at the services committee tonight. Some of you were there, but it's basically on hold right now while Daryl and I go through and work on the MS4 program. Some reporting that needs to be done on that, and some information that needs to be dug up, which will help inform the stormwater utility. So once we get that, we'll talk about what type of communication and interaction with the community we want to have, possibly a stakeholder workshop, something in that regard. But that is moving forward, but on hold for the time being while we figure out the MS4 program. I have on my desk, I've got plan reviews for 4 large residential areas, 2 commercial areas, and 1 roundabout. So there's just a lot going on. We had 2 pre-cons within the last couple of weeks, 1 for Rolling Hills, 1 for Magnolia Park. And it just seems like requests for conversations and meetings and potential development coming in every day. So a lot of that reach as well as a lot of coordination with Delaware County Engineer. I'm sorry, do you have a question?
No, I'd say preach. It means I can sling. I agree.
Yeah, it's very cool, very busy. That's pretty much it as far as the highlights I had marked down here to hit on, but I'm more than happy to answer questions on
Yeah,
that.
what are the 2 subdivisions did you not mention? You said you have 4 on your desk. You mentioned 2.
Well, the pre-cons were for Magnolia and Rolling Hills. The ones I'm reviewing are ravines at Meadow Ridge, Eagle Creek, Price Ponds, we're calling it Section 3. Sunbury Commerce Park Apartments, the Romanelli project, that commercial project at Sunbury Meadows and Peacock. And missed one here, Eagle Storage.
Okay.
And then I'm working with the county on the roundabout at Cheshire Golf Course Road.
I wonder what Wes is doing if you're doing all that. I had two things I wanted to add. If you go down 3Bs and a K Road, you'll notice a large infrastructure project right now going on. It's the county sewer expansion. Very large pipes, very large infrastructure, and that's related to Eagle Creek and I believe ravines. Piggyback somewhat under that as well, but basically it's wastewater treatment plant expansion area moving from north to south, I think.
Mhm.
Okay. And then Magnolia Park, I'd seen some stuff on Facebook. There's some tree clearing going on in and around the intermediate school. Yeah, the intermediate school. And that is related to Magnolia Park. I do want to let you know that as tree clearing is taking place, there's a very close focus from CT on the inspection side to ensure that clearing limits are being respected. And we actually had an inspector out there on Saturday morning with the tree clearing crew. The stuff I saw on Facebook was some folks saying, I thought that was school property, and the majority of it is not school property. So it's about 27 units or thereabout, I think on 25 acres or something. Give or take.
I believe ultimately there's 43 in those two sections, but there are two sections. The first one probably is about 27.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Whiting? All right, let's go on to resolutions. We have a first reading, resolution 2023.05, a resolution revising the investment policy for the city of Sunbury pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 135.14. Any comments, questions? Okay. All right, ordinances, third reading, ordinance number 2022.50. I believe we're going to remain tabled. That is the Cutler Real Estate. And that is one of the plans that I believe you're reviewing.
That's correct.
We have a first reading, ordinance number 2023.07, an ordinance authorizing the creation of the One Ohio Opioid Settlement Fund number 211 and declaring an emergency. Is this being passed tonight to receive or allocate the funds? Okay, thank you.
This ordinance is to formally ratify the fund to receive our share of the opioid settlement. We actually did already receive the money. So this is a recommendation from the Auditor of State, their bulletin that came out earlier last year that recommends that each subdivision create a separate fund and ratify that via formal legislation. So this is kind of doing it after the fact. So we need to get this in place so that we can formally properly accept those funds and put them into a proper fund. So I would ask that it is passed tonight if you so desire. That's why it has an emergency language in there.
Any questions for our finance director?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion by Mr. Martin. Second by Mr. Knapp. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost.
Yes.
7 ayes.
Motion on the emergency.
Motion by Mr. Martin. Second by Mr. Knapp. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
7 ayes.
Motion on ordinance 2023.07.
Mr. Martin made a motion on the ordinance. Second by Mr. Neff. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
and Mr. Ghost.
Yes.
7 ayes.
All right, we are in the new and unfinished business. We have an insurance renewal 2023-2024, the Ohio plan. This is more or less our property coverage. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, and we're ready to go. Okay. Anything major change? There, any changes to the plan?
Nothing major. There is a short memo in your packet that describes the slight increase from 2022-23 plan year. Overall, the renewal is up just under $3,000 from one year to the next. And considering the purchases and additions that we've gone through as a city, I should say that's very reasonable.
It is a reasonable increase. Being in the business, the market's very hard this year. Pricing is on the rise. That's fairly modest based on what I've seen.
Great.
In the market.
We need a motion and a second.
I'll motion.
We got a motion by Mr. Groves, second by Joe St. John. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
7 days.
All right, great. We have the Baker Tilly engagement letter and supplemental advisory agreement. Daryl or Steve or Dana, would you like to speak to this?
So just a quick reminder, we talked about this at the finance committee meeting last month. So this is the engagement with Baker Tilly to basically help us get a rating and then be able to do a bond for our facilities improvement project later this year. So we estimate that to be about a $4 million bond. And so the total cost of their services, providing municipal advisory services from the beginning to the end is $49,000.
To be incorporated into the bond.
And yeah, actually bond proceeds will be use bond proceeds to pay this.
Any questions? All right, I'll make a motion. Second by Mr. Grumney. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
7 days.
All right, we are next on to branding, communications, and media services. Daryl Hennessy, you got to work out.
Smart enough to stay there. So can we talk about this at the finance committee meeting? We've added, in fact, it is a scope of work to engage an individual to provide branding, communication, and media services to the city. So the scope has remained unchanged from our discussion last time. What you have in the packet then is the proposal from Mr. Thomas, WT Media is the company. The proposal is $75 per hour. As we talked about, that would be 360 hours cap for a year's worth of services. And we would pay it on an equal retainer based contract, so an equal amount each month. And as we talked about in the services committee, and there's even another reason that stormwater utility engagement with the public is just one more reason that to have a professional help us with this would be very helpful. So we are asking for council tonight.
I'd like to make that motion.
A motion by Councilwoman Cooper. Second by Councilman Capel. I had a question. So when we approve this, how long will it take to get an agreement in place with Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, so I do have a template agreement that I'll pass on to Mr. Green. And we'll work through that, and once we can work out those issues, hopefully we could have this in place in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, all right, that's good. One thing, Mr. Bream, and I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I know I mentioned it to Daryl. We need to have a most favored nations clause of sorts in there. He does a lot of work for the community. Much of it is free. He does for some of the sports athletes and things like that. But there's just a lot going on right now across our community, and I want to make sure that we're first in line.
Yeah.
And he agreed with that, Mr. Thomas. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
7 days.
Right, we have information only, parade rules and procedures, best practices. Would anybody like to speak to this?
I already addressed that in my events, update, but there's a parades rules and procedures in your OneDrive. If everyone could look that over between now and the next meeting. If you have any feedback, I got yours, Mr. Breen. If you could just send it my way, we'll funnel it through Mr. Breen and Mr. Hennessy, and then I'll be looking for approval at our next meeting.
Right, good deal. And I think we're on to open roundtable. Newer unfinished business, Mr. Gibbs.
I would add one more thing back that I forgot to mention with J.R. Smith Park. So there's been some talk out there about whether we're going to rename the park. First answer is unequivocally, that's a no. Nobody's ever talked about that, nor do we have any intention of doing so. And second to that, we actually had a conversation with Mr. J.R. Smith himself. I think it was several months ago, wasn't it, Steve?
Yes.
And I think it was you on the phone. He gave him a high level overview about some of the things we're looking at doing down there, and he got a positive reply out of Mr. Smith. So he was on board with redoing it in some way, shape, or form. And then I also have him on my list to call, and I'm going to invite him to the open house.
That's great.
Whenever we
Is he
did that.
local? Does he live?
Yeah, I believe so, doesn't he, Steve?
I don't know. I remember going, he lives out in one of the townships, real close to town. Yeah,
Great.
yeah, North Galena Road, I think it is. He told me his name. I said, is this the J.R. Smith of J.R. Smith? Yes, it is. I'm glad you called.
So he'll be invited to the open house.
Great.
I'll talk to him as well.
Cool. Thanks for the update, Tim.
Nothing.
Nothing, Mr. Grumney? No, Mr. Capel? No. All right, Mr.
I
Cooper?
just wanted to ask that our council retreat was confirmed for May 13th, right?
Yes.
And is there anything that you need from us?
Yeah, I've got a homework sheet. I've got to dust it off and I'll get that out to you.
Okay, thank you. And then I just wanted to remind everyone in the room that the Harlem Wizards are going to be here on Monday, March 6th. A couple of our members of council up here will be playing. Joe St. John is playing on our team. Murray Neff is playing on our team. And then the Mr. St. John, his father, is actually going to be one of our refs at the game.
That's pretty cool.
So
He's
we're
really excited.
Big Walnut Grill will be there. Doors open at 4:30. You can buy dinner. It's like, I think $8 or $10 for a meal. And then tip off is at 6 o'clock. And it's going to be fun. And it's a fundraiser for the local Rotary Club.
What's the date again of that?
Monday, March 6th. Doors open at 4:30 and tip off is at 6.
This upcoming Monday. It's gonna
If
be-
for no other reason, to see him in short shorts, and I'll get you the uniform.
Tall striped socks. Oh, that's gonna be.
There's a lot of community leaders, Mayor Love, Councilman Ruben Minor, Joey Thomas, Whiteside, couple firefighters, McLean, a couple local pastors, and then some principals and teachers and staff from the school. So should be a really good time.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. I don't know if it's gonna be a good game, but it will be.
So thanks for all the volunteers for that. That's it for.
I'm good. All right. Anything, Mr. Neff? Nothing to report. Or anything from staff, new or unfinished business? All right, good deal. Well, our next meeting is the 15th, correct? We do have a third meeting this month. I'd like to maybe just leave it on there. And if we go to cancel, maybe we'll do that at the next meeting as we have more information. Does that sound okay? All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second by Councilman Capel. Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper, Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
and Mr. Grumney.